Welcome to World Wrap, your global snapshot for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Here's what's happening around the world. Ceasefire talks between Russia and Ukraine gain momentum after a high-profile call. Global markets digest a fragile US-China tariff truce. And India-Pakistan tensions seek cautious observation after last week's military flare-up. These stories and more coming right up. In South Asia, the situation between India and Pakistan remains a key focus. Following last week's military escalation, including missile strikes and cross-border firing, diplomatic efforts for de-escalation continue. While the ceasefire along the line of control in Kashmir, extended to May 18th, has largely held, both nations maintain heightened military alertness. Analysts suggest the recent conflict has, for now, potentially boosted the domestic image of Pakistan's military. In India, an Indian professor at Ashoka University was reportedly arrested over remarks made concerning India's military operation, sparking debate. On the business front, India is pushing to strengthen its manufacturing ecosystem with the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, recently signing an MOU with Hafele India to support innovation and MSMEs. Across Southeast Asia, ASEAN nations are collectively navigating the complexities of US-China trade tensions and US tariff policies. Thailand's minister has emphasized that ASEAN backs fair and free trade principles as it moves forward with its own trade talks. The Philippines is reportedly advocating for an ASEAN-wide visa to boost regional tourism. In Indonesia, authorities continue to grapple with the aftermath of a significant food poisoning incident in Bogor, while also addressing concerns over recent volcanic activity from Mount Luatobi. Meanwhile, Vietnam and China are looking to enhance cross-border rail links to boost trade and tourism. In a concerning trend, reports indicate a spike in sea robberies in the Singapore Strait. In East Asia, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba announced over the weekend a plan to drastically strengthen the national strategy to industrialize quantum technology, aiming to make it a new industrial pillar amidst growing international competition. This includes promoting support for related startups and human resource development. In South Korea, Rainbow Robotics is set to unveil its next-generation humanoid robot technologies at the ICRA 2025, the world's largest robotics conference taking place in Atlanta this week. Watch for further updates on the India-Pakistan de-escalation process and ASEAN's collective response to global trade dynamics. In China, the focus remains on navigating the delicate trade relationship with the United States following the 90-day tariff reduction agreement reached in Geneva last week. While the truce offers temporary relief, Chinese officials and state media continue to emphasize the need for sincere and equal negotiations for any lasting resolution. Domestically, major Chinese banks cut deposit rates again today in an effort to preserve their shrinking profitability and encourage more consumer spending, as the economy faces headwinds from the property sector crisis and weak domestic demand. Economic data released yesterday showed a mixed picture for April, with industrial production exceeding expectations, but retail sales falling short. Across Africa, several high-level meetings and initiatives are underway. In South Africa, the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources is set to brief the media today on the country's critical minerals strategy and the new Mineral Resources Development Bill. Also today, the MEC for Agriculture in Northwest Province will lead a commemoration of World Bee Day in Marikana. South African Deputy President Paul Mashatile is currently on an official working visit to France from May 19th to 24th. And Minister Mamoloko Kubayi is attending a high-level retreat in Ghana, focused on the Kampala Amendments and international criminal justice. These events highlight a continent-wide focus on economic development, resource management, and international cooperation. In Australia, the Reserve Bank of Australia is a key focus this week, as markets await its next monetary policy decision. The Australian share market opened slightly lower today, with investors watching global cues including the US-China trade truce and commodity price movements. In the renewable energy sector, Octopus Australia announced today it has received grid connection approval for a major 300-megawatt solar plus storage site in New South Wales. This follows other recent approvals for large-scale renewable projects including Elements Green, securing approval for a 1.3 gigawatt-hour solar plus storage facility in Queensland. In New Zealand, discussions continue regarding healthcare reforms and the government's social media policy for minors. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza remains acute, with international aid agencies and the UN continuing to warn of widespread starvation and the collapse of the healthcare system as Israel's aid blockade and military operations persist. Israel's war cabinet reportedly approved plans last week for an expanded offensive, a move that has drawn widespread international condemnation and calls for restraint. U.S. President Donald Trump's recent tour of the Middle East, which concluded last week with stops in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, saw the announcement of significant economic and defense deals, and a continued U.S. push for regional stability and a resolution to the Gaza conflict. The Arab League, at its recent summit in Baghdad, called for an international fund to rebuild Gaza. In the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Keir Starmer met with EU leaders in London yesterday for a summit aimed at resetting trade and defence ties post-Brexit. The UK is seeking closer collaboration, particularly on reducing trade friction for food and agricultural products and potentially rejoining youth mobility schemes, while the EU has its own priorities, including fishing rights. In Germany, Chancellor Friedrich Merz's new coalition government is now in place, focusing on its policy agenda. Across the European Union, officials are reportedly working on a 17th sanctions package against Russia related to the war in Ukraine. The EU is also moving forward with its strategy to end reliance on Russian fossil fuels. The war in Ukraine continues, with reports today indicating that US President Donald Trump stated Moscow and Kiev will immediately start negotiations towards a ceasefire, following a lengthy phone call he had with Russian President Vladimir Putin last night. President Putin reportedly told Trump that Russia is ready to work on a memorandum for a possible future peace accord. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in response, reiterated Ukraine's commitment to peace talks but stressed that Russia must first demonstrate a readiness for meaningful engagement. This follows a weekend of intense fighting in eastern Ukraine. Across Latin America, the economic climate continues to be a focus, with a recent report from FGV Ibre indicating a worsening economic outlook for the region in early 2025, even before the full impact of the recent US-China trade war escalation and subsequent truce. In Argentina, President Javier Milei's government persists with its economic austerity measures, which have seen some initial market confidence in terms of reduced sovereign risk, but continue to face domestic challenges with high inflation. Brazil is moving forward with preparations to host the 2027 FIFA Women's World Cup. Mexico's state oil company Pemex is reportedly making plans to re-enter capital markets after the upcoming June elections. Countries like Chile and Colombia are navigating fluctuating global commodity prices and implementing domestic reforms. The recent China CELAC forum in Beijing also highlighted China's increasing engagement across the region. In entertainment, the Cannes Film Festival continues to draw global attention, with filmmaker Wes Anderson reportedly mocking US President Trump's proposed 100% tariff on foreign films during a press conference. In India, the crime drama Raid 2 continues its strong box office performance. In technology and science, the Pint of Science Festival is taking place this week, bringing scientists to pubs and cafes worldwide to share their discoveries, covering topics from healthcare inequalities to fighting drug resistance. Today also marks Dewa de Manet, the Mandean celebration of the birthday of John the Baptist. That's World Wrap for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Like and follow us for more daily updates from around the globe. See you tomorrow.